භාවිත කළ ඓතිහාසික කන්දොඩු රට ඇසළ පෙරහර මහා මංගල්‍යයේ සිරි විසිතුර අත්විඳින්නයි ඔබ සෝදානම් වෙන්නේ. වෙසෙස් වූ සංස්කෘතික මංගල්‍යයක උත්කර්ෂය. ඓතිහාසික කන්දොඩු රට ඇසළ පෙරහර මහා මංගල්‍යයේ දෙවන කුඹල් පෙරහර වීදි සංචාරය කිරීම සඳහා සියලු කටයුතු සෝදානම්. ඓතිහාසික සෙන්කඩගල පුරවරයේ උතුම් දළදා හාමුදුරන් විශේෂ වාර්ෂිකව පවත්වන පෙරහර මංගල්‍ය ලෝකයේ නන් දෙසින් පැමිණෙන බැතිමතුන්ගේ වගේම ශ්‍රී ලාංකීය ජනතාවගේත් හදවත් දිනු වෙසසින් වූ පෙරහර මංගල්‍යයක්. නමුත් මේ පවතින සෞඛ්‍ය ගැටලුව නිසාවෙන් මේ දිනවල මහනුවර නගරයට පැමිණ මේ පෙරහැරයේ සිරි විසිතුර අත්විඳින්නට ඔබට හැකියාවක් ලැබෙන්නේ නැහැ. නමුත් අපි සූදානම් වෙනවා සජීවීව මේ පෙරහැර විසිතුරේ අසිරිය ඔබට ගෙනෙන්න. ඒ නිසාවෙන් අපි ගෞරවයෙන් ඔබට ආරාධනා කරනවා ඓතිහාසික කන්දොඩු රට ඇසළ පෙරහැර මහා මංගල්‍යයේ දෙවන කුඹල් පෙරහැරේ සිරි විසිතුර අත්විඳින්නට.
இப்பொழுது நீங்கள் காணும் இப்பாரம்பரிய வழக்கம் புனித பெரஹர பணிக்குழுவினர் தியவர்ண நிலைமை பிரதீப் நிலங்க தயால அவர்களிடமிருந்து பெரஹர வீதி வலம் வருவதற்கு உத்தியோகபூர்வ அனுமதியையும் ஆசியையும் பெற்றுக்கொள்ளும்.
Making his way from the upper to the lower chamber, the chief incumbent of the Mallata Mahavihara, Venerable Tibbatuave Sri Medankaranayaka Thero, brings the relic casket to be placed on the mount of the royal tusker.
The relic casket is now being placed within the Ranhilige, mounted on the adorned tusker, who will light up the Kumbal Perahera.
Marking the beginning of the Kandy Esala Perahera, in fact, the second Kumbal Perahera today, dedicated to Lord Buddha, we see the Perahera officials offering flowers and bowls to the Perahera casket.
And this is the devout moment when the great tusker steps majestically down from the Mahavahalkada to the Sandagala in preparation to walk the streets of the city.
And today, this tusker who is fortunate enough to carry the sacred burden of the relic casket at the second Kumbal Perahera is Indiraja. As we see the bird eye view of the Kandian city as well as Sri Dalada Malikava, we are now about to witness the beginning of the second Kumbal Perahera of the Esala procession.
The whip wielders mark the beginning of the Perahera. When the rain god pours down life-giving water from the sky, there we hear the roaring sound of the thundering. This is the very sound symbolized by these lashing whips. They fill the Kandian sky and the hearts of the weavers alike. This is why the whip wielders are tasked with paving the way for the approaching Perahera and the sacred relic casket.
The annual Perahera, which is held in the month of Esala, usually in the month of Esala, but this time in the month of August, is believed to trigger the monsoon. In fact, as Isuru mentioned earlier as well, the whip wielders symbolize the thunder which precedes the rain. In single file, the whip wielders notify the citizenry of the impending approach of the relic casket as well as the entire procession.
Usually, when the whipmasters are wielding their whips, there used to be people throwing coins into the paths of the whipmasters as an offering to ward off evil from their children and to smooth their life paths. But unfortunately, this year, due to the corona pandemic situation, we don't see such crowd. However, the performers are still, with full faith and devotion, are carrying out this generation given task.
The whipmaster's duty is handed down from generation to generation of their clans. According to our traditions, Peraheras that do not have this pedigree are not even worth being called such. And today, this group of whip wielders is led by Upali Jairatna.
Although the whip conjures up fear in most minds, the sight of the Perahera whipmasters has the opposite effect. It is calming the populace, since they are the ones who clear the way for the holy Perahera casket to be carried in the streets of the city.
These whip crackers produce a sound which is equivalent to the sound of lightning strikes. And the reason for this is to pay homage to rain gods, requesting to bless our crops and cultivations with rain. And as they are about to leave our sight, we are about to see yet another beautiful sight which comes after the whip wielders, which is the fire dancers.
Indeed, Sachini, the balls of fire is a spectacular sight in the Kandy Esala Perahera. The fireball wielders create cyclic patterns in the dark sky, reminding the lay spectators of the lightning that marks a soon-to-be rain. While it may seem as a sport for the young performers, the elders see it rather as a sacred duty to please the gods.
Exactly, Suru. As you mentioned very clearly, the lightning which usually comes with the rains, it's a phenomenon of nature, and that is magnificently depicted by this group of fireball dancers.
Once the oil-soaked rags are lit and tied to the ends of the wielding sticks with leather thongs, they are akin to lightning strikes to the eye.
Those blinding flashes are a cooling heat in the Kandy Esala procession. This is the heritage of the traditions of our fireball dancers.
The sun, moon, earth, universe, solar month, night and day are all cyclic, and the fire dancers highlight these universal cycles and how they burn and cool us in our life cycles.
In fact, Isuru, when it comes to the Kandy Esala procession, there are several terms and there are several specific names which are attributed to several performances. And in Sinhala, this turning of the fireballs is called Pandampalya. And when it is translated, we can translate it as a play of fire, a performance of fire.
Indeed, Sachini. And these dancers tame fire and give it as a Dalada offering, mindful of its part in cooking, protecting crops and chenas, and dispelling darkness, while creating curiosity, satisfaction, and amazement to the people who are weaving the procession.
These fireball dances are led by E.D. Tilakaratna today in the second Kumbal Perahera. And the true import of these dances is seen when a large group of them perform simultaneously, merging their various fairy elements into an amazing display of light and heat. The tradition is usually handed down from generation to generation, and you can see how it is a collective effort in order to make this pageant or this grand procession of Asia a beautiful one.
The fiery life cycle awash in desire, ignorance and anger is highlighted by the chakras painted by these fire dancers.
The dancers are seen creating their paintings of fire across the night skies as they move in procession.
Following them, we can now see the flag bearers led by a Sri Lankan flag.
The sight of the Buddhist flag creates a sense of unreflecting joy on the part of the people weaving the Kandy procession, and these flag bearers are led by the national flag.
The national flag of Sri Lanka is a symbol of unity and harmony. It represents all the ethnicities that we are, and it proudly represents our cultural identity, which runs for over 2,500 years.
When it comes to the Buddhist flag, It's a symbol of faith and peace. 6 colors of the flag represent the colors of the aura that emanated from the body of Lord Buddha when he attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. The horizontal strips represent the races of the world, living in harmony, while the vertical strips represent eternal world peace. And it is indeed a pretty important symbol in this Kandy Esala procession.
The flag bearers create a sense of the unlimited compassion of the Buddha through the sacred Dalada tooth relic. The sight calms undisciplined, wayward minds and focuses them on the procession of the love and compassion radiating across the universe.
And these youngsters who carry the Buddhist flags today in the procession are from Chandrananda Buddhist College.
From the day that the sacred tooth relic arrived on this island, the eightfold path, farming and rural life was established in a smooth, unhurried, disciplined system of coexistence.
And coming into our sight now are the sword bearers. These sword bearers symbolize the protection given to the entire procession.
Indeed, Sachini. And one might wonder the purpose of sword bearers in a Buddhist procession such as this. While Buddhism promotes non-violence, it is with utmost respect and gratefulness that we remind our heroes who sacrificed so much to ensure the protection to the Buddhism to prevail in our country.
And this is the very first tusker of the entire procession today, bearing the Perahera of the procession. Clad in white robes, the Perahera comes into view, ceremoniously carrying the secretarial scroll. And this magnificent tusker who carries the Perahera today is the Nadungamwe Raja tusker. The duty of the Perahera leading the elephant procession is to inform the citizens of the country that the procession is being carried out in accordance with the directives of the scroll. As the infamous tusker Nadungamwe Raja with the Perahera leave our sight, we now see the heavy troop of Sri Dalada Malikala.
until the Halsey trumpeters permanently seconded in the service of the Dalada Margava arrive in procession, no Panchatura Vadana or making sound using either drums or musical instruments is permitted.
Double drums, trumpets, cymbals, bajhorns, conchas, and anklets or tinkles are used in this performance.
Indeed, Sachini. In fact, these musical instruments cover 5 types of music produced. They are Atata, Vitata, Vitatatata, Gana, Susira. All these types of music producing instruments have been used in the Kandy Esala Perahera Halsey troops.
For this, the 4 great drum clans of the Dalada Maligava, namely Uruvela, Maligammana, Ihalavela and Malgoda, contribute with great devotion and pageantry to the celebration.
Perahera is a yearly occurrence to pay homage to the sacred tooth relic. It is therefore a yearly tradition that the 4 leaders of Halsey troops arrive in the Dalada procession.
And now we see the Gajanayaka Nilame, who arrives as the royal official in charge of the king's troop of elephants, which is a position given to him directly by the king himself. And today he rides yet another magnificent tusker, who is also a very famous tusker, which is the Vasana tusker from Ruhunu Mahakataragama Devalaya. And the Gajanayaka Nilame is carrying the Hindua or elephant god, which is given to him by the Devadana Nilame.
Indeed, Sachini. According to the tradition, the Gajanayaka Nilame obtains the Hendua from the Devada Nilame once he bows down in respect and obtain his blessing.
And now we see another beautiful performance by a group of Panthera dancers. And this group today is led by Sarath Vijayasire. The pantheru or tambourines without the skin bring the purity of the Dalada procession into the minds of the people as they step across the promenade. The sound of the pantheru too is synonymous with the Kandy Esala Perahera.
this instrument is crucial to the Kavikara Maduva or chanting groups of the procession.
And now we see a young tusker who belongs to Mallatu Mahavihare carrying a Buddhist flag, and this tusker is the Sindhu tusker. Once again, the Buddhist flag reminds us of the importance of this entire procession as a Buddhist procession. Up next, we have a group of Nayandi dancers. This is a traditional dance by experienced artists dressed in Nayandi dancing ornaments without the headgear of the dancing ornaments. And it is also a dancing item of the Kandian tradition.
Traditionally, the Kandian dancer's costume comprises of 64 pieces, and the Nayandi performers, although they are without the headgear, comprise part of that traditional West dancing costume.
And riding on the tusker Singharaja, we see an official carrying a canopy. The Singharaja tusker is also a very fortunate tusker from Sri Dalada Maligava elephant stables, and this canopy symbolizes the protection and shelter provided to the sacred relic casket throughout the entire Dalada procession.
Now we see another most awaited performers, and this is the first West dancing troupe that we see in the Kandy Esala Perahera, Kumbal Perahera, the second one.
And this is the West dancing troupe led by Ishanta Ihalavela and Lasantha Vansekra.
The most unique and the most recognized of the Kandian dance heritage is the fully adorned West Nattua or the Kandian dancer. The Kandian dancer's skill and dance form have been brought to the national consciousness by the Dalanda Perahera alone.
And this troupe of West dancers are lined up in order to pay their respect to the approaching Perahera casket. The origin and birth of West dance trace back to the time of King Pandukabe. And as Isuru mentioned earlier as well, This costume consists of 64 different pieces of accessories, and it has become an icon of our beautiful country.
Now we see the Karya Karavana Korale of the Kandy Esala Perahera. The Karya Karavana Korale is the second in command of the Diyavadana Nilame, and it is a heritage position given by royal decree.
And now is the highlight of the entire procession. In fact, the most awaited moment of the procession. We see the Tusker Indiraja from Sri Dalada Maligava Elephant Stables carrying the sacred Perahera casket today in the second Kumbal Perahera. And alongside Indiraja, we see the two Tuskers, Burumaraja and Kandula. Burumaraja is also from Sri Dalada Maligava Elephant Stables, while Kandula is from Kalaniya Rajamahavihara. And now we see the chanting group of Sri Dalada Maligava singing hymns or chanting hymns in praise of Lord Buddha and the sacred Dalada Truth relic.
The Kavikara Maduva, or the Chamber of Versifiers, is well known in the Dalada rituals.
And now we see the second group of West dancers coming into our sight. This group is led by Sanjeeva Verapitiya and Peter Surasena. And today, in the second Kumbal Perahera, representing the Diyavadana Nilame, the lay custodian of Dalada Maligava, we have Mr. Gayan Heenkender, the Basnayak Nilame of Sri Mahanatha Devale of Kandy. And following him, we see the protectors or the Vidanis.
The Vidanis of the 10 villages under the Senkarigala king accompany the Devadana Nilame as they collectively pay their respect and homage to Dalanda Maligava.
And now we are about to see the beginning of the Natha Devale procession. And what you see now is the godly ornaments being carried to be mounted on the tusker who will carry those today in the second Kumbal Perahera. The first of the 4 Devale Peraharas is that of the Natha Devale. It is accepted that God Natha is the coming Buddha.
The Perahera of the Natha Devale is dedicated to God Natha, who is believed to be aspiring to attain Buddhahood in the future.
And this is the very first sight we see in the Natha Devale procession, a yellow-clad elephant carrying the Buddhist flag. And following the elephant, we have the Buddhist flag bearers of Natha Devale, once again symbolizing that this entire procession is a Buddhist procession.
Indeed, Sachini. And also, when it comes to Natha Devale Perahera, we will be seeing a lot of yellow color. This is because yellow is attributed to the complexion of Natha, the god.
And this is a flag bearer riding the elephant from Varukandala. Once again, this elephant is also clad in bright yellow, symbolizing the color of God Natha. And this is the heavy troop of the Natha Devale Perahera segment. This tune has echoed through the hills of Sri Lanka for centuries. And these heavy beaters are masterfully painting a clear picture with music, with their incessant rhythm of drum beats.
The musical instruments in the Hevisi troupe have been synonymously used in most of our traditional festivals as well as in traditional functions such as the religious functions and also household functions such as weddings.
Usually in the Kandy Esala procession, The majestic elephant's presence is usually signaled by the distinct strains of the Gajagavandami. And coming into our sight now are the mother and son, who are named as Bandara and Kumari. In fact, they are a usual sight in the Natha Devale procession. And we now see the Nayandi dancing troupe in the Natha Devale procession.
Another interesting fact about Sri Natha Devalaya is that this is one of the most oldest buildings in Kandy city. In fact, it dates back to the 14th century, marking it as the oldest building in Kandyan kingdom.
Once again, these Nayandi dancers are performing a dancing item of the Kandyan tradition. It is indeed a very beautiful sight to see how they perform with their magnificent dancing costumes. Usually this is a dance form which is held in the Devales, and in this dance Gata Perahera was played and verses used for upcountry or Udarata dancing tradition were sung.
Each step that we are witnessing has been taking years of practice, and these performers have been training for this great occasion for years.
And we see another elephant clad in gleaming yellow, symbolizing the color of God Natha, joining the Natha Devale procession.
Mounted on him is a sun canopy bearer.
This is a very pleasing sight to see this group of Savaram dancers, and in today's Perahera this is the very first group of Savaram dancers we see. And the Savaram or the fan dancers are a very nice sight to be seen in a Perahera like this, in a procession like this, because they symbolize fanning. And in the Natha Devale procession, they are symbolizing the performance. With their performance, they are symbolizing the act of fanning to the approaching godly ornaments, the casket with godly ornaments in the Natha Devale Perahera.
In the ancient times, the king, his queen, and a selected few group of officials, such as noble people, were honored by being fanned. Since the living Buddha walks along the streets of the city in this procession, it is with great devotion that the dancers stylize their fanning in ordered columns.
And this is another elephant who is named as Kandula. And on Kandula's mount we see another sun canopy bearer. And this is a group of Panthera dancers. And this is the first group of Panthera dancers we see in the Devale processions.
The Panterua is a simple instrument which is accompanied by a series of hymns sung in the honor of the god.
A special feature of the Panthera dancers in the procession is that they wear the original and traditional attire. In other processions across the island, the Panthera dancers are attired in costumes styled in various ways. Therefore, it is only in the hill capital Kandy that we are able to witness the Panthera dance in its most authentic and purest forms. And we are about to see how these skilled Panthera dancers are showcasing their brilliant performances in the second Kumbal Perahera today.
Indeed, Sachini, these skillful youngsters are showcasing how acrobatic their training has been. And it shows how much energy and devotion they have.
And this is Lasanda coming into our side. And the Nayadi dancers of the Natha Devale procession are coming into our side now. And this is the second troop of Nayadi dancers in this Devale Perahera segment itself. And these Nayandi dances are about to herald the arrival of the godly ornaments of God Natha in the Natha Devale procession.
Following these Nayandi dances, we now see the chief incumbent of the Srinatha Devalaya paving the way for the godly ornaments of Srinatha the god.
Following the traditions that have been carried out throughout centuries, we now see the Tusker group carrying the godly ornaments of God Natha. And today, this beautiful Tusker who carries these godly ornaments is called Muthuraja, and he is accompanied by Kumari and Rani. As the Natha Devale procession ends, it leads to the procession of Vishnu Devale. And now we see how the godly ornaments of God Vishnu are being carried by the chief incumbent to be placed on the top of the Tusker, who will be carrying those ornaments today in the Kumbal Perahera.
And now we see the flag bearers of the Vishnu Devala procession led by the chief incumbent of Vishnu Devala procession.
This Perahera represents God Vishnu, who is thought to be the god overseeing the well-being of the island of Sri Lanka. And when talking about these flags, in these flags one can see different symbols, and specifically one could notice the symbol of Gurula, which is a mythical bird which is also considered the vehicle of God Vishnu.
God Vishnu is also affiliated with the Hindu pantheon. It is said that he is one of the chief gods in Hinduism.
And now we see the first elephant in the Vishnu Devale Perahera segment. And this elephant is Suranimala. And on the mount of Suranimala, we see a flag bearer, maybe symbolizing the flag of God Vishnu.
Now we see the heavy crew of Sri Vishnu Devalaya.
The auditory effect produced by the beautiful and distinct strains of the Gajagavanala is pretty much a beautiful thing to hear during this Perahera season. In this heavy performance, drums are being incorporated to make a unique sound, and we hear the beats of the drums and the tunes of the Horanava soaring up to the skies up above the Senkadakala kingdom. Clad in blue robes, we now see the Damunupola elephant.
One can see that those who take part in this Perahera are mostly clad in blue. This is because it is the color associated with God Vishnu.
And now we see a group of young dancers, in fact wooden stick dancers, join in the Vishnu Devale procession. And this is the very first time we see a group of wooden stick dancers in today's Perahera.
The wooden stick dance is a folk dance that we find in our locality. This performance that we see in the Perahera is one of the favorite spots that we can see in the stories of our legends.
And the Likalia wooden stick dance is an instantly recognizable cultural icon of the Kandian kingdom as well, Isuru. It depicts the traditional martial arts or Angampura. Now we see two elephants bearing cobra heads, and these two elephants are the Muthu elephant from Mutyangana and the elephant Haritha.
The cobra head is a symbol of protection, and these canopy bearers symbolize the protection to the great Esala Perahera.
And this is yet another troupe of Nayandi dancers, but this time wearing a different colored headgear. Compared to the previous Nayandi dancing troupes we saw in today's Perahera, this troupe comprises very young dancers as well. And they lead to another duo of elephants who are named as Tikiri and Sanju, and both Tikiri and Sanju are from Matugama.
And mounted on them we can see canopy bearers, ensuring the protection provided to the godly ornaments of God Vishnu.
And this is a group of Udaki players. And Isiru, this is also the first time we see Udaki players in today's Perahera, am I right?
Indeed, Sachini. Udaki is another folk musical instrument that we find in Sri Lanka.
The Udaki is a hand drum and it holds a special place in the Dalada celebrations. It is also played in the daily rituals of the Sacred Tooth relic as well. Bearing canopies and cobra heads, we see a trio of elephants now in the Vishnu Devale procession. These are she-tuskers who are named as the Mudunkot she-tusker, Mali she-tusker and the she-tusker Ratkarawe.
And following them, we see another energetic Nayandi dancing performers. Vishnu Devale plays a vital role as the custodian and the main distributor of cup to the other three Devalayas and the place where Valiyak Natuma is held at the end of the Esala procession.
And this is the chief incumbent of the Vishnu Devale parading in today's Perahera, led by this group of Nayandi dancers. And now we see the one-tusked tusker, Rama, who is also called Ekadanta, proudly carrying the godly ornaments of God Vishnu in today's second Kumbal Perahera. And Rama is accompanied by the two she-tuskers, Sita and Alapata. We can see this very important trio of elephants in the Vishnu Devale procession is also clad in beautiful blue, once again symbolizing the color of God Vishnu.
Following that, we now see the commencement of Sri Kataragama Devala procession. And now we see the officials taking the initiative to commence the procession by taking out the godly ornaments of God Kataragama.
The Kataragama Devale in Kandy had been built in the 14th century and it became more popular in the 16th century. It is dedicated to God Skanda Kumara or God Kataragama. and it is believed that the god has 6 faces and 12 hands. And what we see now is the group of flag bearers, which symbolizes the commencement of the Perahera. And once again, not only the Buddhist flag, but also the national flag is being carried, and the provincial flags are also carried in the Kataragama Devale procession.
God Skanda can also be found in the Hindu religion, and it is believed that God Skanda or God Kataragama is the son of the chief god Ishvara.
And on these flags we can see the symbol of peacock, which is recognized as the vehicle of god Kataragama.
Now we see the Hevisi troop representing Sri Kataragama Devale procession.
As the Hevisi beaters leave our sight, we see a Gajanayak Nilame. In fact, this is the Gajanayak Nilame of Kataragama Devale, carrying the Henduva or elephant god and riding the she-tusker Manike, who is clad in beautiful red, symbolizing the color of god Kataragama. And up next, we see a group of castanet players.
Castanet is a simple yet very effective instrument of our culture.
One can see that most of the participants in the Kataragama Devale Perahera segment are clad in red to symbolize the color of the warrior god Kataragama. And the castanets help all Perahera dancers to keep time as each troop goes through their moves in accordance with various timing patterns. And it is considered a necessary part of the Dalada procession. And this is the tusker Panduka, the elephant Panduka. In fact, the second elephant of the Kataragama Devale procession, bearing a canopy right above him to symbolize the protection provided to the godly ornaments of god Kataragama.
Following that, we can see once again another very energetic wooden stick dancers.
And one can notice that when it comes to the Kataragama Devale procession, that we can hear steady fast beats and very rhythmic movements, vigorous movements, because god Kataragama, as I mentioned previously too, is considered a warrior god.
Indeed, Sachini. And also adding to that, I think the fact that god Kataragama being affiliated with South Indian origin also plays a part in these vibrant and very energetic beats that they are playing in the Kataragama Devale procession.
And now we see another 2 elephants parading in the Kataragama Devale procession. And these 2 elephants are Kadira, and one is a she-tusker who is called the Ratna she-tusker.
Up next we see another hand drum playing troupe, and this is the hand drum players of Sri Kataragama Devalaya.
The dance of the hand drum players or udaki players is relatively simple. And one can also see the traditional clan heritage of the players as they join the procession through the streets of the city. This small drum-like instrument is a unique addition to the procession, which contributes to the variety of drum beats filling the air. And these two elephants who are joining the Kataragama Devalaya procession now are the elephant Chula and the elephant Sankaraja.
Mounted on these majestic beasts, we see two majestic canopy bearers, ensuring the protection provided to the godly ornaments of God Kataragama. We see a snake head canopy on one of the canopy bearers.
And now we see the Nayani dancing troupe in the Kataragama Devalaya procession. And this troupe of Nayandi dancers are once again heralding the arrival of the main Tusky group in the Kataragama Devalaya procession.
God Skanda is believed to reside in Kataragama area of Sri Lanka.
And once again we are about to see a mixture of both Sri Lankan and Hindu traditions, and in the costumes of the chief incumbent of Kataragama Devalaya we see that the coexistence of a variety of cultures and traditions. Clad in bright red, coming into our sight now is the main Tusky group in the Kataragama Devalaya procession. And the elephant carrying the godly ornaments of god Kataragama today is the elephant Panduka. As Panduka carries the godly ornaments of god Kataragama, the elephant Esala and the elephant Sankaraja accompany him. And there are officials sitting on the back of the two Dale elephants in order to pay homage, pay tribute to the godly ornaments of god Kataragama.
That marks the end of the Kataragama Devala procession and the commencement of the Sri Pattini Devala procession.
Goddess Pattini is a deity who commands great respect among most of the citizenry of the country, and the only female representation at the Dalida procession is the Pattini Devale Perahera. We can see the two Alatti Ammas performing their rituals in honor of Goddess Pattini. As the procession of Pattini Devale begins, we now see the flag bearers.
Indeed, such a day. And we see the Buddhist flag bearers leading the way for the Pattini Devala procession.
And this is the heavy troop in the Pattini Devale procession, once again playing the beautiful rhythm of Gajagavandana. And this is a collective act, a collective performance of both youngsters and elders.
Folklore states that the goddess Pattini was a great model who preserved her chastity, and due to this great and noble quality, she could obtain the highest veneration of human beings. Following the heavy troop, we now see another magnificent duo of elephants.
And on the mounts of these two elephants, we see a canopy as well as a cobra head. And one can notice that when it comes to the Pattini Devale procession too, similar to the Perahera or the procession of Natha Devale, the color which is used the most is the color yellow. And these two elephants are also clad in beautiful yellow robes.
Up next we see the first representation of women in the Kandy Esala procession. This is the female Panteru dancing troupe, and this troupe has been trained by Miss Vindhya Kulasiri.
This instrument, the Panteru, is pretty much symbolic, and it is very significant when it comes to the Pattini Devale procession. It is considered an ornament worn by goddess Pattini, and it plays a symbolic role when it comes to the character of goddess Pattini as well. Folklore stated that the goddess Pattini was a great model who preserved her chastity, and due to this great and noble quality, she could obtain the highest veneration of human beings. And that's why, when it comes to the Esala procession, it is in the Pattini Devale segment only the female representation is allowed.
Following them, we can see another beautiful duo of elephants.
In fact, these two elephants are she-tuskers, who are named the she-tusker Gonakumbura and Kumari.
Following that, we see a paddy dance by a troupe of dancers trained by Miss Takshila Sirivardhana from Takshila Kalayatane in Yatihalagala.
And Isuru, this is also an important dance because in this dancing performance we can see both female and male dancers performing collectively, representing the nature of the agrarian society which prevailed in Sri Lanka back then.
Indeed, Sachini. In the ancient Sinhalese culture, both men and women took part in the cause of agriculture. And this dance is a fine example for this collaboration.
It could be said that these dancers invoke the concepts of bounty, fertility and prosperity from their dance.
Following that, we see another beautifully clad elephant in the Natha Devala procession.
And this is the she-tusker Manike.
And up next we see another Nayandi dancing performance under under Pattini Devala procession.
We can hear this group of Nayandi dancers chanting hymns while performing.
This troupe of Nayandi dancers have been trained by Mr. Mithun Bandara from Mithun Bandara Kalayatana in Watapuluwa.
Belief in Goddess Pattini with faith brought blessings on small children and women. She is supposed to be a goddess of noblest qualities, and those who believed in her were cured of hidden diseases, skin diseases, etc., provided they led a religious life. And this is the procession dedicated to such a goddess.
Now we see the chief incumbent of Sri Pattini Devalaya leading the way for the godly ornaments of Goddess Pattini.
And now we see the godly ornaments of Goddess Pattini being mounted on the top of the elephant Bibila, and the Bibila elephant is accompanied today by the Banda elephant and the Shitasker Chuti Manike.
What you just saw was the conclusion of the second Kumbal Perahera.
Let there be timely rains that will bring life-giving water to our fields and ensure a bountiful harvest.
May our country prosper. Dalada Samindu Pihitai.